So I was so blown away by the scene. I think a lot of people were. I was seeing reactions on Twitter and on Reddit and everything. So many people were talking about just like how amazing this was. And it's like 2 minutes long, but there's so much going on here. So I wanted to talk about it a little bit. So notice how in this fight there's exactly one line of dialogue.
Oh, look who it is. The boy savior.
And it basically comes off as just Jinx exuding nervous, chaotic Jinx energy. But even that has the secondary purpose. It's to let the audience know that Jinx recognizes and remembers EKKO, which is necessary to understand for what eventually happens. But that's how this starts. Jinx says her one line. The rest of the story of this fight, and this fight itself is its own little story. The rest of it is told without dialogue, which is incredible. It's told with visual cues, musical cues, body language, editing, camera effects, and that's also something. The effects are obviously quite loud, and they're so much of what make the scene cool. The music and the visuals. But there's a character moment that is very, very powerful that stays in the background. And the restraint that you see with that, that's something throughout the whole series really, really impressed me. Just the level of restraint. And I think it's important to talk about what this scene could have been. But okay, let's go through it step by step. Okay, so first of all, remember we're 2/3 into the series at this point. We've seen a lot of fight scenes. If we see just kind of another one that's kind of just rote action, then it's going to be a little bit repetitious. So right after Jinx says her line, then immediately there's a body language cue. So we see a decision is made on EKKO's part. With the next body language cue, the mood changes. We see confidence. Okay, and then with the third one, we see something unexpected is happening. And this is both for us and for the characters. This is something that EKKO didn't think of before until just now, and that Jinx was kind of thrown off by. But what's specifically going on is that there's an offer being made, and then it's accepted. And this type of like surprise that we're getting has left the realm at this point of being surprising to the characters. It becomes very clear that they know exactly what's going on. We, the audience, still don't, and that keeps us interested. It adds a layer of tension, suspense. Okay, so then Powder appears, and this is where the real storytelling starts. So just to be clear here, what's actually happening is they were about to fight just a normal shooty, clubby-wubby kind of fight. Okay, just, action. And then EKKO offers a different format, and it's a game that they used to play when they were kids. EKKO would try to hit Powder on the head with his club before Powder could shoot him on the square target that he's wearing on his chest. She would basically have time to get off a few shots with a gun, which he would try to dodge so that he could reach her in time and then get in his whack. So when they were kids, Powder used a paintball gun and she wore a pot on her head for protection. And this is going to be contrasted with the situation they're in now. They're adults, and this is life and death. Okay, so these are childhood friends. The writers took what could have been just a fight between two characters, and they use this element. They infuse the whole scene with this element that it's between not just any two people, but between these two friends who have known each other for a long time, who have a pre-existing relationship with each other. This doesn't just have to be a fight scene; it can be a scene, where there's a moment, a further development in this relationship. So that's one layer here. The second layer is we see kind of how the characters used to be at that age. That EKKO was less agile, less maneuverable, and Jinx was still really skilled. She would win. Now EKKO can do flips and stuff like that, and he's developed. So this is now not just a fight scene. It's not just a scene between two childhood friends. It's a scene about growth. It's a scene about change. Which is one of the major character and world themes of the entire series. Okay, so now we get the flashback, among the most visually stunning and musically creative scenes in the whole show. But I want to focus just on like what it does, because it really does so much. The speed and the frame rate, reinforces that this is a flashback, like just that abrupt change. You have the brightness, which contrasts with the darkness of the scene, of what's actually going on the bridge. Things are much more innocent when they're kids, and everything is the world is bright, so to speak, and now the world is dark. Now things are gritty. We have the upbeat mood of the music, which reinforces the game nature of the flashback, of the scene in the flashback. And that's going to drop out abruptly when they actually start, and when it's not a game, when it's life and death. But for now, the music is fun. because this is them having fun, or this, at least this was them having fun. It's also kind of, I guess, maybe like pump up kind of music. It's because it's about showing EKKO's growth and showing what gave him that confidence that we saw the hint of, in the beginning of the scene. But to go back to the content of the flashback, EKKO loses, right? So EKKO loses, Powder's triumphant, and then the flashback ends. After that, we get a time rewind, which is like, 1 second, like a half a second, and it's, this itself does a lot. And first of all, it brings us back to the scene, but also it foreshadows, who EKKO is. It foreshadows his abilities, which have to do with time. Okay, now keep in mind the last fight we saw JINX in, so she was easily dodging kind of everything that got thrown at her. And now this fight is shown to be different because it's someone who knows her well. EKKO remembers her exact patterns, and that's what happens when they actually fight. He follows the same patterns. He wins, right? But then there's another bait and switch. Is this a real victory? So he wins the game, and that was kind of as far as he planned. The flashback ended when the game ended, right? And that's what he was thinking about. That's what was in his head when he made this decision. Here he wins the game. He hits her, right? And then he gets her on the ground, and he's going to hit her more, and maybe even kill her. But what happened? So what did he do by bringing this all into the realm of the childhood memories, right? So how did that change things unexpectedly for him? What did it cost him? It's ugly what's going on right now, right? When he has her on the ground, he's beating her up. It's brutal, and what he had done, unfortunately, to himself was he had brought himself back into the childhood game mode, with his childhood friend. And if he hadn't put himself in that mode, then, where he was remembering this good time with his friend, he wouldn't have had this contrast, and maybe he would have retained the clarity on who this was, that it was JINX and it was not Powder, but and maybe he would have had like the actual courage in his convictions to knock her out or whatever, to do the ugly brutal part of it, but he couldn't because of what he had done to win. He had remembered that this was his friend, and now he's looking at her and he sees his friend. And it's not just that it was this memory of fun, it was memory of their bond, of this mutual growth that they had, that she was one who forced him to grow and to change. And that's another theme, throughout this entire series of kind of who made who caused the changes in who. And if it wasn't for Powder, as we see here, then EKKO would not have been as strong as he is today. He's not just experiencing pity for someone that he cares about, but he's seeing this person who did something for him. This is a real friend who helped him and who caused him to become stronger. And that same change, which happened in him from when they were children, a change also happened in her, and that's going to be the undoing here of all of EKKO's efforts. So that stops him, not being able to remember that this is not his childhood friend. That stops him just long enough for JINX to remind him that Powder is long gone, And by the way, they also, as a whole, they did the normal format of a fight here, making us think that JINX is gonna win because of the flashback, and then, oh no, is EKKO gonna win? No, JINX won. That general pattern that we always see with fight scenes. But within just this moment, just these few seconds, there's also a little bait and switch during his moment of hesitation. And it's all nonverbal once again, that EKKO is having this moment and we see JINX and we're like, is she sharing in this moment? Is she afraid? Is she, like, do we see that flash of Powder? And then it's like, no, maybe it's just that she's resigned to her fate, and then it's nope. That's just JINX.
That's me!
So once again, this was a fight that could have just been a normal, shooty, clubby-wubby, all-out brawl, right? With EKKO doing cool flips and JINX being all chaotic. And instead it became this character moment, this really deep character moment, and this thematic moment. These characters had changed so much since they were kids, and EKKO, he bet the whole fight on that. But by bringing that fight into the realm, by dwelling on the change and how things are now versus how things used to be, he forgot the premise. He forgot that his childhood friend had changed, right? And just like he had changed, maybe in the opposite way, but he forgot that change happens, and he couldn't see that in her as he had seen it in himself. It's a really interesting moment of irony. It's exploring a new side of the show's theme of change. It's relevant to the character arcs as well, but it fits them so well. It's not just, this isn't something that you could do with any of just any old character pair in the story. Like, imagine a scene like this, with the childhood game and everything, with like Jace and Caitlyn. Like, it would just not work. Like, this is a scene that really only works with these two, and that's another thing we love to see as the audience. We love to see these expressions of character that are so EKKO, that are so JINX, and only could be JINX. And keep in mind, once again, all of this is with no dialogue beyond that first line. There was no, do you remember that game we used to play? I bet I'll win. No, now I'm stronger. Now I'm gonna win.
You underestimate my power!
We didn't have any of that crap. There's that Pixar rule of don't show the audience 4, show them 2 + 2. And this scene was so, so much that. It was so, find the meaning yourself as you're watching it, from all these hints that they're dropping, all of these little cues. And the way they set it up, it was perfect that even if you don't get, a lot of this in the moment as you're watching it, the scene still totally works, just to whatever extent that you are seeing the layers of what's happening. And even if you miss, all the subtext, or you're not even looking for it, then it's still just so cool visually and musically. And this is all in like 120 seconds. It's incredible. I cannot believe this scene. I can't believe the whole series, but like this scene itself, like this really just blew me away.